Hello and welcome back. It's Trevor Price here again, and this video is all about preparing for your first meeting with your research supervisor or other tutor or lecturer or professor at university. The first thing you need to do if you want to meet with your tutor is to firstly contact them requesting such a meeting. Whether you're meeting them online or in person, it doesn't really matter. The procedure's the same if you want to get the most from that meeting. Introduce yourself, because realize that tutors have many students, and especially if this is your first meeting with them, they might not quite remember who you are or indeed what you want. So introduce yourself and explain the reason why you want to meet them. This also helps the tutor prepare for the meeting, because they understand what sort of questions, what's likely to be discussed, what sort of thing you want from the meeting. So also, don't expect a meeting there and then. Don't just turn up to the tutor's office. Don't just turn up online, send an email and expect to meet within an hour or even the next day. Because tutors have a lot of things to do. They have lots of teaching, they do research, they have administration to do, plus they need to see other students. So the best thing in your initial request for that meeting is to propose in about 2 or 3 days' time, a couple of different days with a couple of different times during the day when you suggest a meeting could take place, and ask the tutor to confirm which is best for them. The second thing is to use an online or a traditional physical calendar or diary to book your meeting in. So you can pencil in the proposed dates which are to be confirmed with your tutor. Once the tutor gets back to you and confirms the date and the times, then you can confirm that date, put it strongly in your calendar or your diary. And this makes sure that you both don't forget when it is, what the meeting's about, who you're meeting, and where and when you are supposed to meet. So once the tutor gets back to you and says, right, I can meet you on that day at that time in that location, be it online or physically in a classroom, then you need to just get back to that tutor and confirm the day, the time and the location is suitable for you as well. Especially if you're meeting online, make sure that you understand the system, the online system that you're going to be using for that meeting. It might be Blackboard Collaborate, it might be Adobe Connect, it might be some other system that the tutor wants to use. So get ready for the meeting then. You've got a few days now to prepare. So prepare for that meeting. Understand what your problems are, and don't just go to the meeting with loads of problems to say to your tutor, I've got all these things I don't quite understand. What are the answers to them? Your tutor won't look kindly upon that. You're a student and you're supposed to be using your initiative, your ability to hunt down information and answers to solve problems. So I understand at this point you might not have the solution to your problems. But in a meeting, I would hope that a student says, I've got this problem, I don't quite understand really how to solve it, but I've had a go, I've tried to do it this way. What do you think? It's much better in a meeting, and it signifies and signals to the tutor that this student is really trying hard. And if the student can be seen to be really trying hard, it makes the tutor feel, yeah, I really want to help this person because they've tried. Perhaps they've failed to get the correct solution, but at least they've given it a go. There's nothing worse than a student coming to a meeting and saying, I've got this problem, but I don't know what the answer is, you tell me. It's like, well, if you can't even be bothered to try and solve that problem, why should I, you know? So you have some problems that you've thought about, make a list of them and try and provide solutions to those problems. They might not be the right solutions, but at least it shows, it signals that you've tried your best to find that solution. So prepare a list of questions to help you solve those problems. Even if those questions you have some answers to and they're complete guesses, Perhaps the solutions you've provided to your own problems are complete guesses as well. It doesn't matter, at least you've tried. That shows your creativity, that shows your determination and your commitment to your studies. Plus also, you might have been requested to do some tasks or read some materials to help you find solutions to those problems. So for example, you might have had a class, and in that class, solutions to the problems that you're facing have been discussed. And the tutor might say, well, if you're having problems in the future, have a look at this textbook or have a look at this online learning resource. The answers that you need are there. Well, you need to have done that to provide the answers for yourself. So if the tutor has asked you to do tasks, be it reading, watching online videos, listening to lecture notes or recordings, whatever it is, and you haven't done those tasks, the tutor's going to take a bit of a dim view. So also, regardless of what the tutor and what the university has provided you, perhaps there are solutions to your problems online. You're watching this YouTube movie, which is hopefully helping you, but there might be other YouTube channels and movies that can help solve the exact problem that you're facing at the moment. Perhaps there's textbooks and scientific articles and reports and other resources online that can help. Don't forget your university library as well. Finally, and take this with a pinch of salt, take it with some trepidation, but sometimes your peers can help. I say take this with a pinch of salt because sometimes your peers won't know the answers to the solution, because don't forget they're students as well. It might just be that some of those students in class have had experience of solving similar problems in the past and they might have the answer, and if they're willing to share and especially explain the solution to the problem and how to arrive at the solution, that will be the best for you. But sometimes students can tell you the wrong things, not intentionally. They're trying to help, but they simply don't know the correct way to do things. So whilst it gives you an idea, it might not always be the correct path to follow. It can be useful sometimes though. So before the meeting with your tutor or your research supervisor, send your ideas before the meeting. So for example, if you're going to be discussing some solutions to the problems that you're having, then email before the meeting, a couple of days before the meeting if you can, with your suggested solutions. If in a research meeting, you're asking the tutor to give you his or her comments on your research work, then they need to have that research work to prepare for the meeting before the meeting happens. If you just turn up to the meeting and say, look, I've got all this stuff, I'd like your thoughts on it, that's going to waste a lot of time in the meeting because the tutor or the research professor has to look through and read your work whilst you're sat there virtually or physically in the meeting, and that's a waste of time for everyone. The tutor or professor research lecturer might also need to confer with colleagues or hunt down other resources to help you the most. So if you haven't given him or her that time to prepare to do that, then you're not going to get the most out of that meeting. So now it's the time and day of your meeting. Make sure that you arrive on time. If it's an online meeting, test out the system beforehand that you're going to meet in. Make sure that it's all working. If there's a problem with your internet or connection somehow, during the time of your meeting, just email your tutor or research supervisor and say, I've got a problem, something's cropped up, I can't make it. It's really important to let your tutor or your research supervisor know if you can't make a meeting. Perhaps your internet's gone down if you're meeting online. Perhaps you've got stuck in traffic if you're having a physical meeting. Whatever the reason, if you can email or send a text or something to let your tutor know, your researcher know that you won't be able to arrive on time for that meeting. Usually they don't mind, but usually a tutor or research supervisor, an academic member of staff, has allocated perhaps 20-30 minutes for that meeting, and after that they've got other things they have to do. So by letting them know that you can't arrive on time, the tutor will be able to perhaps reschedule the meeting, perhaps will say, well, I've only got 30 minutes left. If you can make it in that time, that's fine, but if you can't, don't worry about it, we'll meet again another time. So you're in the meeting. The next thing you need to do whilst you're in the meeting, as well as ask your questions, of course, and listen to what your academic member of staff is saying to you, is to make notes and ask all the questions that you need to ask during that meeting, and make sure that you record the answers. In some meetings I've had with students have found it useful to record the audio on their smartphones or something like that, to make sure that they don't miss anything that we are discussing. Other students, meanwhile, are pretty good at handwriting keynotes from the meeting. Whatever system you prefer, make sure, firstly, you ask the supervisor, the member of staff you're having the meeting with, if it's okay to record the meeting. Shouldn't be a problem at all. But then make sure that you go through those handwritten notes or your recordings after the meeting and write up them so that they are legible and understandable to you, and you understand the solutions that have been discussed, the actions that have been discussed during the meeting and agreed with you and your research supervisor. Because normally in a meeting you'll have a list of actions at the end of it that you've agreed with your research supervisor or your professor to say that I'm going to do this and you're going to do these things for me as well between now and a certain given date. So after the meeting, follow up with your legible and very clear and understandable minutes of the meeting. Because of course you've taken notes of everything that was discussed in the meeting. Those are called minutes of the meeting, and you need to agree with the people you've had the meeting with that these minutes are a true reflection of what was actually said in the meeting. This is useful because it makes people aware of what was actually said, and it checks understanding, especially yours. If you've called that meeting because you don't understand something and you've discussed the solution in that meeting, it can be quite easy sometimes to leave the meeting and after a few days forget the fine details of what were discussed. So writing up minutes will include all the list of actions that have been agreed, and it will also check that you understand fully and you've got a clear and proper reflection of what was said in that meeting. So send the minutes to your tutor, your supervisor, and say, do you agree with these minutes? If so, we'll have those as the confirmed official minutes for that meeting. Those minutes also act as a record that you've actually held the meeting. So if there are problems later on and somebody's saying that you haven't actually met with your supervisor very often, or perhaps insufficiently met with your supervisor, you can pull out the meetings and say, here's proof that I did actually meet with my supervisor. So that could be helpful if you've got any issues later on. So hopefully this video has helped you get the most out of the first meeting with your research supervisor or your tutors about the lectures or issues that you're having in class. If you're liking the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you've got any comments or questions, please put them in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much. Bye now.